What's going on, everybody? Hockey Time here, back for another week of NHL Power Rankings. Hope you guys all had a good week. Full transparency, I have felt like crap the last couple days, so I'm kind of going to try to breeze through this power ranking relatively quickly, try to maintain my voice for as much of today as I can. So apologies in advance if it's a little bit less detailed, less thorough than usual, but just going to try to get through it relatively quickly, so wasting no time here. Number 32, the same team that was 32 last week, is San Jose. 1-2-0 on the week, 1-7-2 in their last 10. It's just not been good from them in general, and for that reason, they stay at the same spot they've been for much of this year. Number 31, and this team drops 3 spots after a decent week last week. 0-4-0 on the week is the Anaheim Ducks. It was not a good week from them after, again, a decent week last week. They get thumped to end off the week by the Jets, so just in general, not much to say positive about this week from Anaheim. Of course, they're headed back toward the Macklin Celebrini end of the draft, as they should be, so we'll see what happens there, but in general, not good from Anaheim. They move back a few spots to number 31. Now, number 30 benefits from Anaheim jumping so far back, and that's Chicago. They went 2-2 on the week, so it was decent from them, but all in all, it's not an overly positive jump from them. Again, Anaheim just had such a terrible week that Chicago benefits and moves up the one spot. Number 29, the same spot as the previous week as well, is Arizona. 1-2 on the week, 4-6-0 on their last 10. They've still been struggling. It's been better, of course, than it was in their 14-game losing streak or whatever, but all in all, still just not great from them, so they don't see any improvement on this week's ranking. Number 28, and this team moves up 2 spots despite kind of a mediocre record. 1-1-1 on the week are the Montreal Canadiens. 3-4-3 in their last 10 as well, but again, I just feel like they've been playing better hockey generally than the two teams previously. They hold the Bruins to a one-goal game, which is one of the main reasons why they move up this list so much. I thought that was a really impressive game from them. Caden Primo looked really good in the game that he won this week. I believe a 41-save shutout over Columbus. So some good stuff there from the Canadiens. They move up a few spots as a result. Speaking of Columbus, they are number 27, 0-2-1 on the week, 4-5-1 in their last 10. So it's been a decent stretch, but just not quite good enough to keep them as high up on the board as they were last week. And again, largely thanks to a team jumping them, and that is Ottawa. Ottawa 2-1 on the week. It still hasn't been great from them lately. This week was a better week than the week previous, but over their last 10, 3-6-1 has been pretty ugly since that nice little momentum swing they had maybe 2 or 3 weeks back. So we'll see if they can continue to turn it upward, but it has not looked good for Ottawa. As of late, they do move up the one spot this week, though. And number 25, finishing out this row, dropping a spot as well as Pittsburgh. This team's season is pretty much over at this point. A team that was in the playoff race, they're still technically in it, but it's really not looking good for them at all. So we'll see if they're capable of turning this around, but I frankly don't have much faith in them whatsoever at this point. They've proven to be completely incapable of putting up any fight against even some pretty mediocre teams. They even gave San Jose 3 goals, which is kind of impressive, but it is what it is for the Penguins. They sit 25. We'll see if they can rebound in the coming week. Number 24, this team dropping a spot as well. Not a great week from them, but not nearly as bad as some of the ones below them, is Washington. This team, again, pretty hot and cold in this playoff race. They are like the Pittsburgh Penguins, not dead in it just yet, but teams like Buffalo, Detroit, the Islanders all definitely have a bit of a leg up on them. We'll see what they're capable of doing. I don't have a ton of faith in them making it based on the way they've been playing lately, but Charlie Lindgren has still been pretty solid of late, so never really entirely confident in counting them out, but we'll see what happens over the coming weeks. Number 23, another team dropping one spot, is Seattle. They only play 2 games this week, but they go 0-1-1. They are 5-4-1 in their last 10, so it's been a decent little stretch for them, but they have a lot more ground to make up on the wildcard teams out west than the teams out east do, so we'll see if they're capable of completing that run or if it's going to be tough for them to get in. I don't think they're going to be able to do it, but they still have a few handfuls of games left, so we'll see what happens there for the Kraken. Number 22, another team dropping one spot. Similar story to the Capitals and the Penguins are the New Jersey Devils. 1-2 on the week, 4-6-0 in their last 10. They do have the new goaltending, which has looked good in its first 2 games, so we'll see if that makes a difference. They're in the same boat as the Penguins, though they have a lot of ground to make up on. And I just don't know that I see them making it in. So we'll see if they can really kick it in a high gear, but it's going to be a big struggle, maybe even more so than for a team like Seattle to make it into the playoffs for the Devils. But again, not entirely dead yet. The math doesn't completely count them out, so we'll see if they're able to do it. It would be a true miracle at this point if they can, but never out. So we'll see what happens. Number 21, dropping 3 spots. They had a pretty rough week despite a decent record in their last 10 is Calgary. A really, really tough loss to the Avs. That was the big kicker for this week. They had a pretty comfortable first period. They go up 2-0 and then just completely throw the game out the window. So a tough week in general there. Similar spot once again to Seattle. They have to continue to go at a pace of like 6-4-0, 6-3-1, 7-3-0, like something like that if they want to climb back in and pass Vegas or Nashville. And it just hasn't really been happening this past week for Calgary. So they dropped back a couple spots. They're not dead in this race yet either. All these teams that are kind of at the back half of this row are definitely going to have a tougher time making it in than some of the other teams that are a bit closer. But of course, they're not dead yet either. So we'll see if the Flames are capable of coming back like Seattle. It's going to be a pretty tough journey for them if they want to make it in, but it's not entirely done yet. So for this week, dropping a few spots back to number 21. Now, number 20 is a team that was not in the race in the playoffs really for the last couple weeks, and suddenly they have stormed their way back into it. 6-3-1 in their last 10, 3-0 this week, and that's Buffalo, man. I hope for their fans' sakes that they're not just going to kind of tease them like they did last year and end up a point out of it or whatever, but again, they've looked really, really good. UPL has been fantastic, completely taken over the net there. The scoring has been pretty good for them, so we'll see if they're able to continue this momentum. They beat up on the Red Wings and on the Islanders, I think, this week, so we'll see if they're able to do that again, or was it? No, they beat Tampa and then the Islanders. So we'll see if they can beat Detroit today. And of course, if they do, that's great. If not, they're not entirely dead yet either. They do have a lot more games played than some of these other teams, so it's a bit tighter on the math for them. They have to be really efficient with their remaining games, but it's still completely possible if they play well and, of course, get a little help from some of the teams in front of them. But this week, very, very good, up 5 spots to number 20. Number 19, moving up just 1 spot. They go 2-0. They're only 4-5-1 in their last 10. I'm sorry, 2-1, not 2-0. But it's St. Louis. St. Louis has been playing pretty well. The goaltending has been really good, especially from Jordan Binnington, but just not quite enough for me to move them up dramatically. Again, similar boat to Calgary and to Seattle. I know I am repeating myself over and over again with these teams, but all their stories are really the same. They're quite a bit outside of this playoff range. I just don't know that I see them climbing back in without some really strong help from Vegas losing a bunch of games or Nashville losing a bunch of games, which doesn't seem like it's happening. So they're not done yet either, but I just don't know if I see this team climbing back in. But they've been playing pretty solidly as of late, so they do get rewarded by moving up the 1 spot. Number 18, a team moving up 1 spot despite actually having a sub 500 record on the week, are the New York Islanders. These guys, again, 1-2 on the week. They are 6-4-0 in their last 10, so it's been a good little stretch for them. And they, of course, hold the last spot in the playoffs in the East as of right now. So we'll see if they're able to hold on to that again. The East race a bit tighter than the West race, so it's going to be a little bit more stressful for these guys than it is for a team like Vegas or Nashville. But they have looked good lately. They play the Senators today, so that should be a game they can win. And then, of course, you have Detroit and Buffalo facing off against each other. So should be a good scenario for them there. But, of course, they still have to win the games they play. So good week in general, or good couple weeks in general for the Islanders. They don't have a great week this week, but still get rewarded with the bump up of 1 spot to number 18. Number 17, excuse me, I am like, my voice is super scratchy. We're just trying to power through. Number 17, dropping 5 spots, 0-3-0 on the week. It has been a tough little ride here for the Detroit Red Wings. They looked really good 2 weeks prior to this, and now they have just completely flipped their own script. 3-7-0 in their last 10, very rapidly falling out of the playoffs in the East. Of course, the Islanders snatching that spot back up, but they play a team today that is catching them in the race. Should be more than enough motivation to have a good game. Going to be the same deal for Buffalo, so by no means an easy game, but a game that they should be very, very up for. We'll see if they're able to rebound and kind of snap the skid that they've been on. They are without their captain, of course, which is not good. I think they're something like 2-9 or 2-10 without Larkin this year, but they're going to have to continue to work and try to turn that around if they want to make the playoffs, because I don't know the timetable on his return. But in general, I have some faith their Wings can turn this around. I think they have a good team on paper, probably still better than Buffalo, and honestly, maybe better than the Islanders, but we'll see what they're capable of. They do drop a good bit this week, 5 spots to number 17. Number 16, and this team also drops just 1 spot, and it's Vegas. They're 2-1 on the week, so it was not terrible from them, but 3-6-1 in their last 10. And one team, or I guess two teams in particular kind of leapfrog them. So a good week from them in general. They're probably okay if they go 2-1 every week on the way out here into the playoffs. Teams like Minnesota are really the only threat to them at this point, I think, unless St. Louis, Seattle makes a miracle run. But all in all, if they can continue to go 2-1, 2-2 the rest of the way, they should be in decent shape to make the playoffs. And this week, they do that. So, number 15, another team dropping one spot, 1-2-0, 4-5-1 in their last 10, and that's Philadelphia. This team has been kind of shaky for the last week and a half. The results have still been okay for them, but when they're playing teams that are like distinctly better than they are, it's been a lot shakier than when they play a team like the Sharks. So they have a pretty tough schedule. I'll be completely frank. I know they play Florida still. They have a Jersey team later in the season that's going to be super hungry if they're still in the fight. They have Boston, and I think they have Toronto another time. So, like, a tough schedule here for Philly. They're going to have to hang on for dear life if they want to keep this playoff spot because, again, the teams out east much closer than the teams out west with regard to the wild card race. So, Philly does drop the one spot this week. We'll see if they're able to hold on to that divisional spot or if they drop into a wild card as early as I think Saturday could happen. So, we'll see what happens there. Philly dropping one spot to number 15. Now, number 14, this team goes 3-0 on the week and 6-3-1 in their last 10, and that is the Minnesota Wild. They have been hunting down the Vegas Golden Knights. And of course, winning at a pretty efficient clip, taking care of the teams they should be beating, which is super important at this point in the playoff race. So, good stuff in general from them. Marc-Andre Fleury has looked like his younger self. Very good. If he can keep that up, they are in a good spot to try to catch up to this Vegas team that's been a little bit hit or miss lately. So, good week for Minnesota. They move up a few spots to number 14. Number 13, a similar story here to Minnesota. 2-0 on the week instead of 3-0. 5-4-1 in their last 10, and that is Tampa Bay. They've been good this week. Of course, they need Vasilevsky to continue to play well. He's been very on and off really the entire year, so one of his worst seasons since probably he came into the league. But if he can heat up at the right time, we all know what playoff Bassy looks like, and I don't think anyone wants to face off against that. So Tampa trying to put themselves in a good spot to be safely into the playoffs and not really be a part of this race. They don't have a ton of separation right now, but we'll see if they can build that up over the coming weeks still. Number 12, 2-2 on the week. Moving up one spot is LA. My voice is completely shot, so I'm just going to try to cook through these quickly. Again, 2-2, 5-4-1. They end the week with a shellacking of the Anaheim Ducks, so good stuff from them there, winning the games they need to, creating their own separation with Vegas now at this point. So we'll see if LA can continue that over the coming weeks. Number 11, dropping a spot in 1-2 on the week, is Dallas. They are 6-3-1 in their last 10, but just not the most impressive week for them. Didn't want to keep them above a team like number 10, which is Vancouver. They also dropped down one spot, but 1-1 on the week versus 1-2 on the week. Obviously, less games. Harder to punish them nearly as hard, but one team in particular has played quite well over the last 10 games, but this week as well, and that's number 9, Nashville. I had a hard time keeping this team out of the top row, but I still feel a little bit more comfortable with them at 9 versus at 8 over the team that's going to be listed there, but 2-0-1 on the weekend, 8-0-2 in their last 10. It's been a miraculous run from these guys, and at this point, they are pretty safely in the playoffs. I think I would be shocked if they find a way to fall out at this point with only, 15, 16 games left for most teams, so been a really impressive run from the Preds. We'll see if they can continue this momentum into the playoffs, and hell, who knows? Maybe they're the Florida of this year. I don't know if they have that same composition that Florida has last year, but I guess time will tell, right? So it's been good from them. They move up a few spots to number 9. Number 8. And this team drops one spot despite a 2-1 record, and that is Boston. They have not been fantastic lately, but again, like they've done the whole year, just kind of getting the points needed to keep themselves in that top echelon of teams with Florida and Vancouver and the Rangers. So good stuff as usual from them. Not really too much to say, and can't really say too much anyway. So they're number 8. Number 7, this team flip flops with them, and that's Colorado. 2-0 on the week, 7-2-1 in their last 10. Justus Annunen has started to look really good, which is great news for the Avs. It means they can rest Georgiev headed to the playoffs. And of course, the games Georgie's still playing, he's looked quite good as well. So good stuff in general from them. They have a huge matchup tonight with Edmonton, so really looking forward to that. We'll see what comes of that game. But for now, 2-0 on the week. They move up the one spot, flip-flopping with Boston. Number 6, and this team drops 2 spots, 2-2 on the week. You'll see a lot of other teams not move at all. Hell, even move up earlier in the ranking for a 2-2 record, but this high on the list, you go 500, you're probably going to drop. That's Winnipeg. They had a really good week prior, and it's a fine week this week too, but they're in that dogfight for the number 1 spot in the Central. I think they reclaimed it with their win last night, but they got to keep doing it. Obviously, a team like Colorado and even Dallas, despite their struggles this week, is going to be more than capable of catching them. Only a few points separating those teams. So, got to keep the mojo going here for Winnipeg. They're fine, though. They're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to be a pain in the ass with whoever they play in the first round. But for this week, they do drop 2 spots to number 6. Number 5, and this team drops. Excuse me, moves up 1 spot. They're also 2-0 on the week, and that was Toronto, 7-3-0 in their last 10. This team has looked really good lately, kind of heating up at the right time. Of course, they're bound to play probably one of Florida or Boston, which is terrifying for Leafs fans, but kind of is what it is at this point. They're going to have to overcome one of those two demons to get out of the first round for the second consecutive year. And at this point, that's frankly all these fans care about. So, been good from them. Expect it to continue to be good, but this is one of those teams that for sure is just kind of floating around until playoffs come. So they do move up this week 1 spot to number 4, and then, or excuse me, number 5. Number 4 also moves up 1 spot. That's New York. They're 3-1-0, 6-3-1 in their last 10. This team has continued to hum along as they have really all year. Trying to create a gap between them and the Hurricanes has proven quite difficult, but they do still hold the number 1 seed in the Metro. We'll see if they can maintain that. I don't think they'd be mad if they fell to 2. Frankly, I think Philly might end up being an easier wild card or an easier out than some of the wild card teams. So we'll see what happens there. But the Rangers have been pretty good. They move up the 1 spot. I didn't want to move them up 2 just yet, but good this week, up the 1 spot to number 4. And then gonna bang all these out because again, I got nothing left in my voice. All of 3, 2, and 1 are the same from last week. Carolina number 3, they're 3-1, 6-3-1 in their last 10. Edmonton number 2, 2-0-1, 7-2-1 in their last 10. And Florida staying at number 1, 2-1 on the week, 8-2-0 in their last 10. All these guys have been fantastic. Really, these top 4 teams have proven to be probably the most dominant in the league by a good bit. You can lump Vancouver in there at times when they've, really been on their game, but lately it's been kind of hit or miss with them. And of course, they're now without Thatcher Demko, probably until the playoffs. So we'll see what that means for them. But that's going to be it for these rankings. I'm going to try to spare my voice. So thanks as always for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you really liked it. It is free. I'm going to try to have a recap out later tonight as well, but we'll see how my voice is holding up by that point. So thanks as always for watching, and we will talk to you guys very soon.